Good afternoon and welcome to the Soul Shop. I'm your host, Phyllis King, the Common Sense Psychic. And as always, I'm interviewing people who are inspiring and have great information about how we can live a better life. And today is no different. And my guest, Nancy Walters, oh my goodness. One of the reasons I love this woman is because she's one of these folks who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. She's really on the boots on the ground, making it happen for herself and others in the world. And I think that's one of my favorite things about her. She's the founder of Radiantly Divine. She helps women become more empowered and live their authentic self. And she's using the word sovereign. We're going to talk a lot about that today. And she's the host of the podcast, The Awakened Heart. So there's a lot to talk about here, but let's get her into the program here. Nancy, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Phyllis. It's so good to hear. It's so good to be here. And thank you for such a lovely introduction.
Oh, you deserve that and so much more. You are so on fire in so many ways. I mean, you're one of these people, just being around you is a good deal. I mean, you don't even have to open your mouth. It's just you're kind of that healer type of person. You just make people feel good. So that always catches my eye and something. So
Thank
you
you.
deserve it and so much more.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, and I love so many of the words you use. You know, you have a bio, as we all do in this business. You know, you talk about being authentic and being empowered and, you know, divine feminine and sovereign. These are such powerful words. But why don't we start at the beginning? I mean, I want to hear about everything we can today. But why is it important that we recognize divine feminine? Why is that important? Because people might say, what's she talking about, divine feminine? Does she want to rule the world? What's going on? What does that really mean?
Divine feminine, it's in every one of us, and women especially. It's in men as well. And we all have both masculine and feminine within inside of us. And what has happened in this Western society, especially with the Me Too movements, and then there's the feminist movements and all that, which has been good to some extent, but it's also hurt women in a lot of ways because we're trying to do it all. We do it all. We raise kids, we have careers, we take care of the household, we're wives, we're daughters, we're everything else before ourselves. So we're forgetting how to soften into this beautiful feminine being that we are, intrinsic in nature. And being feminine is it's being receptive, it's being open, it's allowing, it's a flow state, it's nature, it's the moon.
Mm.
And yeah, we're forgetting how to be that. And we think that because we're women, we give so much. We give with so little in return so many times. And it's actually when you come to realize you do the divine feminine journey that it's actually more masculine. Giving is masculine. We're supposed to, as women, receive, open and receiving. And that was so in my younger years, I thought you had to overgive. And I was so overgiving. Women are nurturers. We do give because it's natural to us to nurture. We've got the divine mother inside of us as well. So, but yeah, women have been over giving and not giving unto themselves. And a lot of women have been told to be the good girl or sacrifice yourself for other people and you're selfish. But no, the first thing you need to do is put the oxygen mask on your own face, because you won't have any air to give to anyone else or any help to anyone else unless you take care of yourself first. So it's coming back to yourself, your beautiful feminine self, your divine child, your divine mother, and of course the divine masculine in you as well. And it's like the breath of life when you do.
Wow, it sounds so beautiful when you say it, and I'm watching it going, yeah, 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 and I'm connecting the dots all along as you're describing all the traits. We have so much trouble with that. We have so much trouble saying, yeah, I can lean
Mm-hmm.
into that. I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
it's so programmed into us. How do we begin to make that journey out? How do we begin to say, oh yeah, she's right on 100%. But what's our first step as we try to lean in that direction?
Well, the first thing is you say, oh, yeah, how do I do that? You're in the mind. It's getting out of the mind and connecting with your heart and slowing down. It's always, if you think about it, you just slow down.
Hmm.
Even if you start slowing down, breathing differently and talk slowly, that will drop you back into your body. You have to be, you drop into your heart, you drop into your body and getting out of the monkey mind. So that's the first step. So meditation is a good place to start. Even if you don't have a meditation practice, it's just slowing down, breathing.
I love
Mhm,
that. That is so simple. I mean, we miss the simple pieces. It's
mhm.
amazing.
It's
And
simple.
even as you're saying it, and I start to slow down myself and I just kind of watch my breathing a little bit, it's like I immediately
Mhm,
start to feel different. Well,
mhm.
okay, we want to talk a whole lot more about this, so divine feminine and empowering ourselves and all this. But I do want to hear some of your story because you're a fascinating woman. And we all, something makes us go in a certain direction and makes us become an empowered woman expert. I mean, how did this light your fire? Why did this become something you're passionate about?
Well, I think it's just looking around me and seeing how mentally exhausted, physically exhausted a lot of women are. So, how it started for me, I mean, of course, our greatest pain is our greatest teacher, right? So, it's going through it's throughout my whole life I've always like had a reverence for beautiful feminine women.
Mhm.
Mary, the Mother Mary, was always one of my favorite figures. She's just so beautiful, and I have her on my wall downstairs, like, and the Mother Mary story, and she was divine feminine. I was raised Catholic, but luckily it was more the agnostic love is a God is a loving God, forgiving God, not this like knuckles, ruler on the knuckles type of thing and guilt and all that. So Mother Mary was one of my figures. So, and beautiful women. I just admired them. And growing up, I was adopted and I wonderful parents, but I think it started a long time ago where I started abandoning myself. I felt abandoned in life. Um, because I was given from my birth mother, who was very young, to foster parents, and to my parents that I am now. So it's like I was given up twice, but before I was 5 months old. So I think that was a deep wounding inside of me that carried on throughout my whole life, even though I was given so much love and support. And I was so blessed to have been adopted by the parents that I have now.
Mhm.
So it's that carrying on throughout my lifetime and feeling a little abandoned and like becoming who I thought I was supposed to be in order to have love, always feeling a little lonely. And I think it really wasn't even in this lifetime. I was carrying things over from the previous lifetime.
Mhm.
So carry on to the school of hard knocks and getting my heart broken over and over and over again, and relationships ending, marriages ending, all that stuff. So I finally, after the last breakup, I was like, you know what, this is way too painful. I have got to like really examine why this keeps happening to me, why I keep attracting the same person into my life over and over and over again. And so I found solace in opening up to the divine feminine, and really it comes to a place of self-love. I think that's what it is. It's like I used to always hear, oh, self-love, you got to love yourself. Well, what does that mean? I'm supposed to love other people, not myself. What does that even mean?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
came to this place of radical self-love and acceptance, and working with the wounded child inside of myself. And when I surrendered to the feminine goddess, which is in each and every one of us,
Mhm.
there's so much beauty and comfort in that. And everything started opening up after that. And so I decided, after seeing so many women, I lived in Los Angeles at the time, to create groups where we could talk about some of these things and help them embrace it themselves.
Yeah, that's what an incredible story. You make it sound so seamless and easy, and I'm sure it was not. Um,
Nope.
and was there something specific? I mean, you talk about self-love and radical self-love and this type of thing, but did you have a structured process, or you just let it evolve and you just stayed present with yourself? Did you do it with people? I mean, how did that transformation and healing occur?
I think it just occurred I mean, I had been on the spiritual path for years, and this kind of thing is, the spiritual path, it's like a spiral. It's not a straight line. It's like roller coaster. It's here and there. But the last time I was like, Nancy, this has got to stop. So I don't think there was, I mean, I followed, what is that? Joanne Woodward's, that Thomas, the one that you teach about.
Oh, yeah, Catherine Woodward Thomas. Yeah.
Catherine Woodward Thomas. So
Yeah.
I did that book. What is it called? The Secrets of
Calling in the One. Yeah.
Calling in the Why. Why am I blanking out today? So Calling in the One was one. After a month later, I literally devoured that. So that helped me in the process of recovering self, and then just tons of reading, a lot of alone time, allowing the emotions to process. So literally like days where a month straight where I'd cry every day. And then as I allowed those emotions and to run through my body, because when we don't process our emotions, they're stuck in our body. So seeing the depth of despair that I was in is just showing how much was stored within my body. Like what happened with that breakup, if I hadn't had so much that needed to be healed within myself, it wouldn't have affected me as bad as it did. So there was something that needed to heal within myself. So I just devoured every book, self-help book, and then like relationship book. And then I just literally, and then it kind of evolved. Like the crying became less. I wouldn't cry for a whole song. I'd cry for part of the song and then it would be gone. It was interesting to see how it didn't last forever. Like there wasn't as much emotion to come out. So it was little stuff at the time. And then I did a Coop Blackson, like, what was it called? It was a weekend. I don't know if you're familiar with Coop Blackson. He's amazing. He did, why am I forgetting all these names?
Because I'm putting you on the spot.
It's a weekend. It's called, I'll think of it when I'm not thinking of it. Anyway, I did this whole weekend. I can't pull up the name of it, but that really helped transfer me. And then I used him as a transformational coach. And I just went and looked for outside, like books, reading, mentors, people that could help me through it. And then I kind of, got out of that and developed stuff on my own.
That's beautiful. And I love the book you mentioned. And then you and I, of course, we'll talk offline. And if you remember the name of that process, we'll put it in after the fact so people will have it on the screen.
Oh, it's the Man Breakthrough Experience.
There you go.
It's the Man Breakthrough Experience. And it's funny because you think that it's all about talking to men about how attracting the man, but no, it is like about divine feminine and your warrior or your God man. And it's literally radical love for yourself. Radical love.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Well, I love those words as well. You do have a great way with words. By the way, if you're just tuning in now, this is Nancy Walters, and she is the host of the Awakened Heart podcast, and she's the founder of Radiantly Divine, and she really helps women, become more self-empowered and live more authentic lives and really realize their divine feminine self. So, I think you're extraordinarily beautiful and you have incredible energy. How do we feel that way if we aren't like amazingly beautiful? How do we feel that? How do we feel that beauty? I mean, and that, again, putting you on the spot, and we all have a certain way we think about our appearance or whatnot, but how do we feel that way if we don't? I mean,
well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if you think about it, there's so many beautiful, incredible creatures out there where like your jaw drops when you see them, but they don't feel beautiful. They don't feel beautiful within themselves. I've seen some not your traditional beauties out there that just radiate, you want to be near them, and they have this beautiful confidence and this light within themselves. So all of us, it's just getting all that crap out of the way, right? So you have to get all the crap that's covering up this beautiful like pearl within yourself, like clear away all those old beliefs, limiting beliefs, all those like layers on top of this beautiful person that you are. You have to work on cleaning house. Yeah. And so that's the first step to feeling beautiful. So it's all, I mean, God created us all in his own image, and we are perfect. We are perfect. And it's our own beliefs that are keeping us from realizing that.
Yes. I mean, it's so true that you're making it look easy. You're making it look very easy.
Ain't
So,
easy. It ain't
uh,
easy. It's not easy, but it's worth it. It's a process.
well, and I know we have some other things we're going to get to, but I want to touch on this because I found this over the course of my life, which I feel is it's such a shame when I see it at this point in my life. But women tend to be really competitive with each other, whether it's about a man or what you're wearing or where you live. I mean, all kinds of ridiculous things, and
Mhm.
they can really turn against each other rather than with each other. But there's nothing like women supporting women, which is unbelievably powerful for us. How do we turn off that competition that we seem to, I mean, maybe you want to speak to where that might come from, but how do we turn that off and learn how to really be there for each other?
There's something within yourself, if you're feeling that way, that you need to heal. There's a wounded child. There's something that happened in your childhood. There's something that happened with your parents, and there's no need to be competitive. Like if you're okay with yourself, there's no competition. There's room for everybody. And I've always felt like that. Not grew up, but when I moved to California, I was in the entertainment business. So every single girlfriend of mine, and I did modeling, were more beautiful than the next. There's always someone more talented, more beautiful than you. But it was like an acceptance, it's an awe. I look at these other beautiful friends, I'm like, and I just admire that in them. I've never been one that has to feel I'm competitive against someone else. Of course, there's a little bit of like, oh, why she got that? And like a little bit of jealousy, but not one where it's just like where I'm taking it out on someone else.
Right, right.
And I think it's just, we do need to support each other. And if you have people there's toxic, just like there's toxic men, there's toxic women as well. And some of those people you just don't need in your life. You have to clear your energy. Your vibe attracts your tribe, I feel. And there's just no room for that.
There really isn't. And then when you go the other direction, because I've been doing women's groups for so many years, and the way women know how to come together for each other, it's like nothing else. And I don't know, I consider that divine feminine. I know that's not exactly our conversation. I think divinity in general, letting that feminine support mechanism come into being for each of us. I don't know, I love it. So when you're talking about Calling in the One, that book, that was almost always women, and to watch women rally around one another, pretty delicious. So
we're all sisters. And I hear of some people like, oh, well, maybe they'll hit on a married man, or they're doing something, they know they have a girlfriend, but that's your sister. That's your sister. Even if she never knows, there's an energy to that. Like we're all tied intrinsically together, and what you do affects others on the all right, so all the time.
let's put on our heavy lifting apparel right now and take a deep dive into what many women are obsessed about, which is falling in love and finding a partner. Okay, so for those looking for a partner or feeling discouraged, I mean, is there a formula, or how does the divine feminine play into us attracting that right and perfect mate, or should we be even focused on that?
I think, well, you're talking to one of the people that's been single for a very long time, and I think it's on purpose, because you kind of raise your standards, and though it can get like a little lonely and self-doubt as permeated throughout the years, ultimately it's about surrendering and trusting and allowing, that perfect person might not come on your time, but it's going to come in the perfect time. And I believe that it's just preparing yourself and giving yourself everything that you would be giving to someone else, that you'd want to attract into a partner, that you would want to attract in a partner, you give to yourself. So you become the person that you wish to attract. So I really believe that there's so much self-work that needs to be done, and really loving yourself. Right now, I'm dating myself. Like I was on the apps for a little while. I'm like, oh my God, I just can't. No more low-hanging fruit. That's it. Everything that I give, there's so little effort. I'm just give that to myself. I date myself very well. So I'm doing that. Do all the things you want to do, make your life so vibrant and so juicy and so alive that someone's going to be, when they're drawn into your life, like you've already got something that's full. You're not looking for someone else to fill your cup. You've already filled it. And then you want someone else that has done the same. So a lot of times I think it's just having a lot of patience and trusting in yourself that when you're ready, you will attract that right partner and not settling for less.
Well,
Because a lot of
yeah, and it's funny, one of the common themes of your teaching and your wisdom is really about loving ourselves and filling ourselves up in general and healing ourselves, as opposed to trying to have somebody make us feel better, that we're kind of doing that for ourselves. I mean, that's kind of the message, part of your
because
message.
nobody can make you feel better. Like, it's just like a Band-Aid over something.
So I guess for some people who are thinking, I'll be happy when, or I'll be happy if she comes into my experience, it's sort of a what's the word?
Oxymoron?
I don't know, something like that. It's a false truth. It's not true. So
I mean, it's wonderful when you do meet that partner. I think how much more wonderful it is when you've already, how much less SHIT you'll take too, because you have such strong boundaries and you know how you want to be treated and you know what kind of partner you want in your life. So that's really important.
Yeah. So when you do coaching or talk to people, I mean, would you take any clients currently? Are you open to that, helping people become more empowered and have these conversations? Are you open to doing
absolutely.
that? Oh, okay. By the way, how's the best way for people to get a hold of you, and where should they find you?
They can find me. I have my podcast, the Awakened Heart Podcast. And also the best way is to email me at radiantlydivine@gmail.com. And I also have a website as well. And it's the awakenedheartcollective.com.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. Well, not on Facebook that often, but I have an account on Facebook.
Okay. I know some of them we spend more time on than others.
Yeah.
So real quick, tell us about the Awakened Heart podcast. What goes on there?
So the Awakened Heart podcast was created to up-level women's life. So women, of course, a lot of what we've already talked about, and just people that are turning their lives from the ordinary to extraordinary. When we listen to the call of our heart, we are led to do incredible things in our lives and make changes that we never could have dreamed were possible. So it's a lot of different topics. I've covered like breath work. I've covered in relationship series, which I had you on, which was wonderful. And then I've also not afraid to tackle like subjects that people might be afraid to touch or that are a little more controversial because it is about awakening your heart. I've talked about human trafficking. I had a survivor on from that and she actually gave White House recommendations as far as that narcissistic abuse. And now it's kind of taken a turn. I still address a lot of those things, feminine stuff, that women's issues. There was love languages from the five senses, which was, by a man, which was great hearing from their perspective. But it's also taken a turn also because of what's happened in these last 2 years is the Great Awakening. People are awakening to a lot of the darkness that has been going on beneath the surface for a long, long time. And because we've had to slow down in the lockdowns and the mandates and all this craziness that keeps changing one after the other, a lot of people's eyes are being waken up, or a lot of their eyes are opening and they're coming out of this matrix, as you say. Well, so I'm here also to lend support to those that are just awakening, because I went through this the last 2 years and it wasn't pretty. It was shocking to say the least, but I came out of it, and it's a process that I'm here to help a lot of other people come through. And also there's a lot of really bad stuff happening as far as propaganda, and there's corrupt media and the governments and all this. And there's a lot of victims being injured by that, which is being pushed out to every man, woman, and child in this country right now. And I think we know what we're talking about. So I'm helping them give voice, because they're being gaslighted, they're being canceled, and they're making to feel crazy for things that they're going through. So I'm going to use my platform for their voices to be seen and heard, and really just help support them in that as well.
Well, that's amazingly courageous. And yeah, I have so much respect for you for doing that, because most people are just really going to walk the straight and narrow and not,
We
because you
can't.
can really take some hits for taking a stand. So I
But then you
appreciate
drive your trot, you draw in those people, you even create more
Mm.
community with people that are aligned, and you gain a lot. Those people can fall by the wayside, which it's about being authentic. I can't
Yes.
not live in authenticity because I'm afraid people won't like me. And that's a big growth through the years that I've gone through as well. I wanted everyone to like me. I'm a good girl. Look at me.
Right.
I have no opinion. Now I'm like, my line is in the sand.
Right. Well, this is where we kind of started the show saying you're someone who walks the walk and talks the talk. You're really all the way in authentic. And that's one of the things I really admire about you. And we can talk more about that as well. But is there a time, by the way, your podcast comes out, and where does it launch?
I try to do, I was doing about 2 a month. Now I'm doing more because I have more time because my work obligations have slowed. So I usually release them on a Tuesday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'll have another one coming out soon, and I'm going to be a lot more consistent. It's on all podcast players, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher,
Wonderful.
SoundCloud, all of them. You can
Good.
find them.
Excellent.
Yep.
So we want to talk a little bit more about that if we have time. But you and I, before we got on the air today, you were talking to me about ayahuasca. And
Oh, yeah.
I know that you've done that before. Talk to people about first what it is, for if anybody
Okay.
who's never heard the word, and what goes on and how that's factoring into your life at this point.
Well, ayahuasca, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, is like the mother of all plant medicine. And it's indigenous to South America. They've been doing it for thousands of years in a ceremonial setting, and also in Peru as well. And so, what it helps you do, it's two vines. One is the copy, and I forgot the other one, but it has like a DMT in it. So they're mixed together. And you're given by a shaman or a curando or some kind of healer. And I know some people are starting to do it recreationally, which it should never be done because it is a sacred plant. And you want to be in a safe environment, because literally what it does is it's a spiritual experience. Literally, it cuts off a part of your brain that might be your ego. So it sets the ego aside, and you're able to access higher states of consciousness, other dimensions. So you're walking between worlds, and the shamans walk in between worlds with you. They do the ayahuasca as well, but because they're so trained, they know how to walk between worlds. And there's people that have healed like instantaneous healings after they stop drinking, they end addictions. There's it's good for treating OCD or depression. There's all these things that you can be healed from. And, you can have a really bad journey. Some do. A lot of people go to retreats, maybe in Costa Rica or something, where there's maybe 100 people. I would never want to do it with that many people. That's too much. That's too much energy being released. And there's a lot of purging that goes on. When I did it, the ayahuasca that they use is from Hawaii. It's supposed to be gentle on the body, because what a lot of times happens is people throw up, they purge, and they can purge the whole time, throw up. And I hate throwing up. It freaks me out. I hate it. So nobody threw up during mine. I didn't throw up both nights. So I did a 2-night ceremony. I had found somebody. I've been wanting to do it for years. But like I said, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I found 2 shamans here in Portland that have done it for the last couple of years. They studied down in Peru. They work with the medicine. Every year they study with the indigenous tribes. There's only a small group. I think there was only 9 of us that did it. And it was such a beautiful experience. My first night wasn't pretty, but there's a whole ceremony from 7 to 1, and they sing, and they hold the container for everyone. And so ayahuasca it's pretty incredible, because after my life totally did shift for what it needed at the time. And I didn't know at the time if I would ever do it again. I didn't feel called to it. It tastes, I don't like the way it tastes. And it's a lot. Your body goes through a lot. You go through a lot during it. But I did feel a call when I was walking in the woods. I'm like, okay, I think it's time to do it. And I reached out to him, and November was full and I got put on a waiting list. I'm like, okay, if I'm meant to do it, I'll do it. And then a spot opened up and here I go. I go next week and I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like it's some type of is it hallucinogenic? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah. It
And
has
so
hallucinations.
when you say you shifted from what to what, so where were you and where did you end up?
So I had just moved to Portland and I was still like renting a room from a friend. I was beginning to doubt why I was out there, and I didn't have a house, and I had no money because I was making a huge change in my life, and then literally after that there's just so much peace and there's so much love because there's a integration period for about 6 months. It's almost as important as a ceremony. So a lot of things happen. The medicine's still in your body. And literally everything changed. I found my place. Where I live now. I love my place. It's the most perfect place I could ever imagine. I started working and I got COVID hit and was given this position because of COVID and worked more than ever in my life, made more money than I ever did in my life, ever. And
Amazing.
so that gave me like a nice foundation, like a nice savings account and all that stuff. So that's how it really changed a lot. So
Amazing.
the second time I'm doing it, we'll see. I know to surrender. I know try not to control it, and we'll see what happens after. I mean, I'm a little nervous, but I'm actually pretty excited. I've been listening to a lot of the music that I would hear during the ceremony, and it's like putting me back in.
Right.
And the love I actually felt, because on the second night,
Mm.
Mama Io, she was like working with me, and it was just such a pure love, and it was such a beautiful.
Mm.
I'm excited to be put in touch with her again, feel her. Like you can still feel her after, but after the last 2 years of the wrenching that I went through
Yes.
over the anger, the fear, the sadness, the grief, everything that I went, like literally, it's like the butterfly and the chrysalis. Like I changed into a butterfly in the last 2 years. So I'm going to be going into it in a complete different space than I was then.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that woman you referred to, is she a shaman of sorts? Is that what she is? Or what?
Uh, there's two men here. I don't want to
Oh,
say their names. They have a property out here. The first time we went, they used to do it in Airbnbs. We went down to Lincoln City, got a B&B. This time they have a property that's out, I think in St. Helens or out up that way. It's not too far from Portland. So there's two guys, they work together, they're friends, and they studied down in Peru. So they're one of them's a yoga instructor. I think the other one's a doctor, medical doctor, and he yoga instructs, and they do the ceremonies like once a month for years.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And
It's a
how did you find it? How do you find something like that? You just start, is it the word on the street? I mean,
My friend that I was renting the room from,
oh,
she owned a yoga studio. She
oh,
owned a yoga studio and she had mentioned it. And then I was like, oh, I've been wanting to try that. Okay. So I met with one of the shamans and we met for tea and we talked about everything because I wanted to see where they did it, how they did it, like really learn more about it. So I talked and then I booked it. And
well, who knows what's going to come out on the other side, because you are in a vastly different place than you were
totally.
2 years ago. And then you've embarked on this other element of your service to support people who are awakening and trying to cope with the fear and propaganda and stuff going on in the media and this, that, and the other. So that's some heavy lifting. That's some
Mm-hmm.
heavy lifting. That's real boots on the ground work.
Mm-hmm. And you can access, I mean, you're intuitive, you can access it even without ayahuasca, but ayahuasca does put you in touch with that mother of medicine and the plant medicine, or the plant spirit, the spirit. It's a spirit. And yeah, puts you in touch with it. I've accessed something like that when I did breath work in Bali, and I was actually going to go last December to Bali for a shamanic integrated process, and then I was supposed to go again in 21 to do a shamanic breathwork facilitator. I was going to add that, but we know what happened in 2020, so I had to cancel that. So that'll be put on hold for a while longer. But there are ways to access. But a lot of us have this layer of this ego that gets in our way, and with that removed, you're able to you're
That's
just
a,
able to soar. Yeah.
oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. So, I mean, you have this coming up. So, I mean, you have so much going on, it sounds like, in your mind at the very least.
Mhm.
And it sounds like another, I don't know, I would call it tunneling to another trajectory in your life that, it sounds like you got boots on the ground, helping people. You're still doing radiantly divine and helping people recognize their authentic or their power in that regard.
Mhm.
Um, are you waiting until the other side of this ayahuasca experience, or do you have something that you hope is going to come to pass in 2022?
That we open up. No, just kidding. Um,
Well, besides that, we open up, right?
oh yes.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'm going to see what happens. I think I'll get a lot more clarity and a little more direction. Think I'll be put in touch with the right, I mean, you're always going to be put in touch with the right people and opportunities open up. I just think it'll help open other doorways and maybe speed up and maybe open doorways to
Mhm.
things I don't even imagine. If they say, "Oh, you got to move here," I'll move. Or if you got to do this, I'll do it.
Right.
So so I just know I'm going to continue on with my podcast right now and have a lot more people seen and heard, and maybe try to grow that, and then take on people and help support them through their awakening journey, or to help tap into the divine feminine, help people find community with each other, because it's important now more than ever to have community. We're coming
Yeah.
back to that. We've lost that during in this Western culture, where other parts of the world, it's all about community. Bali's all about community, like in the Italian villages, like you've got community. It's very important. I mean, we always talk about, well, the news always talks about, oh, it's not, you're never going to return to normal, but we don't want to return to the old normal. We're all asleep and like not even interacting with each other. It's going to be, we got to create new earth, a beautiful new earth. And it's going to begin with us. It's starting with us. So we all have to band together and unify, not as Black, white, Puerto Rican, Jewish, Muslim, who cares? It's the human race. We are all one.
Mhm. Well, that's a beautiful statement, and you're living it. I mean, you're living it. But before I kind of going to want a call to action or something you might want to leave folks with, but you're unbelievably courageous. I'm so impressed. I mean, that's one thread I noticed for my own clients and people across the course of my career. Those people who really achieve their goals, if we want to call it that, or get to big places, got to have courage. And
Mhm.
that's a hard thing to come by, but you seem to have it in spades. What's the deal?
It's so funny because I did it before. I'd be a little mouse walking on eggshells sometimes, especially some of my relationships. I was so afraid to, the last one, so afraid to lose them. I lost myself. So
Mm,
I guess it's just, courage comes from having a belief that you're so solid in, and just stand in it. And not, one of my things in my whole life is I don't like being lied to.
mm,
I think this came in a past life. I'd have a hard time watching shows where someone was unduly persecuted for something that they didn't do. And now we're seeing this happen all over the world, and freedom. I've never been able to be in a job where someone's standing over me. I've never been able to have that impeded on. If I want to take a vacation, I take a vacation. If I want to go here, I go here. And we're seeing this on an epic level across the scale globally. And it's triggered all these things in me that have always been with me my whole life. So it's having the courage to stand for what I believe in. I really stand for it. And yeah, it might hurt sometimes if someone doesn't agree with me or says something a great, detrimental, but I know so standing in my beliefs that it doesn't shake me. And it's gaining all these other people. They're all coming out of the woodwork that are feeling supported and heard. I just had a friend in California that was like, "Oh my gosh, I just listened to your last podcast." She's like, "I don't feel so alone." She's like, "It feels
oh,
so good. It made me feel so good and so happy."
beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
Well, and that's the side effect. If you can find your courage and move forward in your own beliefs, you're going to make different connections and touch people in different ways. And there's no downside, essentially. We think about what we might lose or what might get harmed, but we don't realize there's another side to that coin.
And
So,
there's
yeah.
so much at stake now. There's so much at stake. People cannot remain quiet anymore. And those that are courageous, that are speaking up are going to help enable others become lions and speak up, because we're
Mm.
at a precipice in our history I don't think any of us have ever encountered before. So we need the courageous. There's no other way to be.
Well, and that sounds somewhat like the call to action. I mean, we're talking about empowerment, we're talking about sovereignty, living our authentic self. And in that statement, you're kind of telling folks what you think our next step should be. But why don't you say it one more time so we know it for us?
So the next steps is just like, if something doesn't feel right, it's not right. Listen to that nudge in your belly, in your heart, and the whispers that are telling you that things just aren't right in our world, or things aren't right in your life, or things aren't right in your relationship. And you've got to listen to that and take action, and find people that support you, people that might have done the same thing before. Maybe just listen and watch them, and then as you watch them and listen, you'll gain courage yourself,
Mhm.
and you'll start standing up for, leave that relationship, or you'll speak your truth about something that is so controversial, or yeah, you'll join in our war.
Yes,
Our
exactly.
spiritual war,
It
or
is.
your own
Yes.
battle.
Yes. So one more time, where should people get a hold of you? The Awakened Heart podcast, obviously, but where do we want to reach you?
You can reach me at radiantlydivine@gmail.com. There's also the Awakened podcast. Wait, it's the awakenedheart.podcast@gmail.com. And then Instagram, mainly I'm on there. You can message me on there. Facebook, I have an account, but I'm not on there very much. I do have a group, but I haven't really popped in there in a while. So I'm working on developing that a little more. And I'm working on updating my website. So best way is to reach out to me direct through my emails or Instagram. I'll see you on there.
Yes, and I hope people do reach out and take advantage of your wisdom, because you're right in the zone. I mean, you are right in it. So I know you can be of great support to a lot of people trying to find their core center and live there. Nancy Walters, thank you for everything you're doing. I appreciate you being here today.
Oh, thank you so much, Phyllis. I'm so honored that you had me on.